The nurse's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold her phone. Her voice cracked through the speaker, raw with terror and guilt that had been eating her alive for 2 years. "Melinda, please don't hang up. I know you don't know me, but I was there the night your baby died. I'm Patricia Quinlan. I was the nurse who administered your son's IV medication at Riverside Hospital." I froze in my sister's bakery kitchen, flour-covered hands gripping the phone. This stranger was talking about the worst night of my life, the night that destroyed everything I'd built, everything I'd dreamed of becoming. "I helped kill your baby," she sobbed, and the words hit me like physical blows. Someone paid me $50,000 to switch his IV medication with something that would stop his heart. I've been living with this secret for 2 years, but I can't anymore. I'm dying, Melinda. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. I have maybe 3 weeks left, and I need you to know the truth before they come for me too. My legs gave out. I sank to the cold tile floor of the bakery, my mind refusing to process what I was hearing. My beautiful baby boy, my Oliver, hadn't died from complications. He'd been murdered. Who? The word came out as a whisper. Who paid you to kill my son? There was a long pause. I could hear her ragged breathing, the weight of her confession crushing her, just as the truth was now crushing me. Your mother-in-law, Francine Reeves. She approached me 2 days before you went into labor. She knew I was drowning in student loans, that my father needed cancer treatment I couldn't afford. She knew exactly how desperate I was, and she used it. The room spun around me. Francine, who had planned my baby shower. Francine, who had helped me pick out his crib. Francine, who had held my hand when they told me Oliver was gone. She said you were wrong for her son, wrong for their family. She said you were after their money, that you'd trapped Desmond with the pregnancy. But that wasn't even the real reason, Melinda. There was something else. Something about protecting the family business from questions you might ask. She was terrified of you becoming permanent family. You're lying. My voice was stronger now, anger beginning to replace shock. This is some sick joke. I have proof. Bank transfers, text messages from the burner phone she used, even a recording I made of our last conversation. She thought she was so careful, but I knew that one day I'd need evidence. I just never found the courage until now, when I have nothing left to lose. Patricia's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. But there's more. Last week, your ex-husband brought his new wife for her pregnancy checkup. She's 22, from the Ashford banking family, and I heard Francine in the parking lot. She was on the phone, and she said if this one gives her any trouble, she'll handle it the same way she handled you. The implications crashed over me like ice. Water. Another innocent woman, another baby at risk, the same monster pulling the strings. Why should I believe you? I asked, even though every instinct in my body was screaming that she was telling the truth. It explained so much. The way the doctors had avoided my eyes, the rushed autopsy, the way Desmond had turned on me so quickly, so viciously, as if someone had been poisoning his mind against me from the moment Oliver died. Because I'm sending you everything right now. Check your phone. And because in about 10 minutes, I'm walking into the police station to confess to murder. I wanted you to hear it from me first. You deserved that much. You deserved so much more than what we did to you. My phone buzzed with incoming messages, screenshots, bank statements, audio files, 2 years of evidence that my baby had been murdered by the woman who'd pretended to love us both. Your son fought, Patricia said suddenly. I need you to know that. Even with the medication, he fought for 3 hours. The doctors couldn't understand why he was lasting so long. It was like he was trying to give us time to save him. I'm so sorry we failed him. I'm so sorry I failed you both. The line went dead. I sat on that cold bakery floor, surrounded by the evidence of my son's murder, finally understanding why my husband had turned so cruel, why he'd blamed my body, my genetics, my family history. His mother had orchestrated it all, had known exactly which buttons to push to make him believe I was defective, that I was responsible for our loss. But now I knew the truth, and Francine Reeves was about to learn what happened when you murdered an innocent child and destroyed his mother's life. She thought she'd gotten away with it. She thought her money and connections would protect her forever. She was wrong. My name is Melinda Reeves, and this is the story of how my mother-in-law murdered my newborn son, destroyed my marriage, and nearly got away with the perfect crime, until a dying nurse's conscience finally gave me the one thing I'd been denied for 2 years: the truth. 2 years after losing everything, I wake up at 4 a.m. every single morning in a cramped apartment above my sister Josie's bakery in Millbrook, Oregon. The smell of fresh bread drifts through the floorboards, and I know she's already downstairs, kneading dough with the same hands that held me through my darkest nights. I pull on my work clothes, tie my hair back, and stare at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me is a ghost of who I used to be. Before I go downstairs to help with the morning rush, I do what I do every morning. I open the drawer beside my bed and look at 2 things: Oliver's hospital bracelet, the one they put on his tiny wrist for 3 precious hours, and the divorce papers Desmond had me sign while I was still sedated from grief medication. His final words are burned into my memory like a brand. "Your defective body killed our son. My mother was right. About you from the beginning. You were never good enough for this family." The bakery keeps me busy, keeps my hands moving while my heart stays frozen. Regular customers know not to ask about my past. They see my flour-covered apron, my forced smile, and they order their coffee and pastries without questions. But I remember who I used to be before everything shattered. 3 years ago, I was Melinda Harper, a kindergarten teacher who loved finger painting and story time and watching 5-year-olds learn to write their names. I volunteered at charity auctions on weekends, which is where I met Desmond Reeves. He bid $10,000 on a dinner I'd prepared for the fundraiser, then asked me to share it with him instead. "I don't actually like lasagna," he admitted with that perfect smile. "I just wanted an excuse to talk to the beautiful woman who's been organizing this entire event." Desmond was everything I dreamed of finding. Successful but not arrogant, working as a pharmaceutical sales representative for his family's distribution company. He brought me flowers every Friday, not roses but wildflowers, because I'd mentioned once that I loved how they grew free and wild. He listened when I talked about my students, remembered their names, even helped me buy supplies for my classroom when the school budget fell short. His parents seemed like a dream come true at first. Walter Reeves owned 3 car dealerships across the state, the kind of man who wore expensive suits but still got his hands dirty fixing engines. He welcomed me with genuine warmth, telling stories about Desmond's childhood while Francine rolled her eyes affectionately. And Francine herself? She was everything I wasn't. Polished, sophisticated, retired from her executive position at Columbia Riverbank, but still serving on 3 boards. She took me shopping for proper clothes, taught me which fork to use at fancy dinners, and never made me feel small about my small-town roots, or so I thought. "You're exactly what Desmond needs," she told me one afternoon over tea at her country club. "Someone real, someone who understands the value of family. These society girls he used to date, they only saw dollar signs. But you, Melinda, you see my son." When I got pregnant 8 months after our wedding, Francine's joy seemed boundless. She threw herself into grandmother mode with an intensity that should have been a warning sign. She insisted on the best of everything: the safest crib, the most advanced baby monitor, the highest-rated car seat. She hired a designer for the nursery, transforming our spare room into something out of a magazine. "Nothing but perfection for my first grandchild," she would say, her hand resting on my growing belly with a possessiveness I mistook for love. The pregnancy was textbook perfect until week 38. I remember every detail of my last normal day. Desmond made me breakfast, scrambled eggs with too much cheese, just how I liked them. We'd spent the morning assembling the last pieces of baby furniture, arguing playfully about whether our son would prefer baseball or football. Francine had stopped by with another shopping bag full of tiny clothes, each outfit more expensive than anything I'd ever worn. "You're glowing," she told me, but there was something in her eyes I couldn't read. Pregnancy suits you. Though I do hope the baby gets Desmond's nose, the Reeves nose is quite distinguished. That night, as I folded those tiny clothes and placed them in the dresser, I felt complete. I had a husband who adored me, in-laws who had welcomed me into their world, and a baby whose movements under my skin felt like promises of a beautiful future. I was living a fairy tale, not knowing that the witch had already prepared her poison apple, and in less than 48 hours, she would feed it to my newborn son. Labor started on a Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. with a sharp pain that made me drop my coffee mug on the kitchen floor. Desmond jumped up from his newspaper, his face switching from alarm to excitement in seconds. "This is it, isn't it? Oh my God, Melinda, we're having our baby today." He drove to Riverside Hospital while Francine called ahead on speakerphone, her voice commanding and precise. "My daughter-in-law is in labor. I want Dr. Brennigan ready and waiting. We'll need the corner suite on the maternity floor, the one I donated funding for last year." Everything seemed perfect for the first 14 hours. Desmond held my hand through contractions, fed me ice chips, told me terrible jokes to distract me from the pain. Walter arrived with flowers and balloons. Francine paced the hallway in her designer heels, updating relatives on her phone, playing the proud grandmother-to-be to perfection. Then the monitors started beeping differently. The steady rhythm of our baby's heartbeat became erratic, jumping too high, then dropping too low. Dr. Brennigan rushed in, his usually calm face creased with concern. "The baby's showing signs of distress," he explained, watching the monitors closely. "His heart rate is unstable. We need to intervene." That's when Nurse Patricia Quinlan entered our room for the first time. Young, maybe late 20s, with tired eyes from pulling a double shift. She wheeled in an IV stand with practiced efficiency. "We're going to start an IV for the baby through the umbilical cord," she explained, her voice professional but kind. "This medication will help stabilize his heart rate. It's a very safe procedure. We do it all the time." I watched her insert the needle, attach the bag of clear fluid, adjust the drip rate. Francine stood right beside her, asking questions about the medication, the dosage, the expected response time. Looking back now, I realized she was making sure Patricia had followed through with their plan. "You're doing beautifully," Francine told me, smoothing my sweat-soaked hair. "My grandson is going to be just fine." For 20 minutes, it seemed to work. The baby's heart rate steadied. Dr. Brennigan smiled for the first time in an hour. "Much better. Let's get ready to meet your son." But then everything went wrong. The monitors erupted in alarms. The baby's heart rate plummeted. Nurses flooded the room. Someone pushed Desmond back. I heard Dr. Brennigan shouting orders about emergency interventions, about getting the OR ready for a C-section. "Please," I begged anyone who would listen. "Please save my baby. Please don't let him die." They cut Oliver out of me in under 3 minutes. I heard him cry once, just once, this tiny mewling sound that was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. Then silence. They worked on him for 3 hours. 3 hours of CPR, medications, ventilators, everything modern medicine could offer. Francine stayed in the room the entire time, her face a mask of concern, occasionally whispering to Patricia, who looked like she might vomit. At 11:47 p.m., Dr. Brennigan called it. "Time of death, 11:47. Cause, sudden infant respiratory failure due to unexpected complications." The room went silent except for my screaming. I screamed until my throat was raw, until they sedated me, until the world went mercifully black. When I woke up, Desmond was sitting in a chair beside my bed, but he wasn't looking at me. He was staring at papers in his hands. "The preliminary autopsy results," he said, his voice hollow. "They found abnormalities, genetic abnormalities. My mother was right to be concerned about your family history." "What are you talking about?" I could barely speak through the medication and grief. "Your grandmother died at 35. Your aunt had 3 miscarriages. You never told me any of this. You never told me your body might not be able to carry a healthy child." The transformation in my husband was immediate and complete. The man who'd held my hand through labor now looked at me with disgust. Over the next week, as I planned a funeral for a baby who'd lived 3 hours, Desmond became cruel in ways I didn't know he was capable of. "My mother researched your family," he said one night. "There's a pattern of defective pregnancies. You knew and you trapped me anyway." "That's not true. Oliver was perfect until something went wrong at the hospital." "Something went wrong in your womb," he spat back. "Your defective body killed our son." The divorce papers arrived the day after Oliver's funeral. Francine had hired the most aggressive law firm in Portland. I was so drowning in grief, so destroyed by losing both my child and my husband's love in the same week, that I signed everything without fighting, without questioning why they were so eager to get me away from the family, away from their lives, away from any possible investigation into what really happened that night. The call came on a Thursday evening while rain hammered against the bakery windows. I was closing alone, wiping down counters, and trying not to think about how Oliver would have been 2 years and 3 months old. An unknown number flashed on my phone. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Please don't hang up." The woman's voice was thick with tears and something else, fear. "This is Patricia Quinlan. I was your nurse at Riverside Hospital the night your baby died." My entire body went cold. I gripped the counter to keep from falling. "What do you want?" "I'm dying," she said, and the words tumbled out like a confession at gunpoint. "Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors say I have 3 weeks, maybe less. I can't meet God with this on my soul. Your baby didn't die from complications, Melinda. I killed him. I injected a concentrated potassium solution into his IV instead of the stabilizing medication. Francine Reeves paid me $50,000 to murder your son." The phone slipped from my hand, clattering on the tile floor. I could hear Patricia's voice still coming through the speaker, begging me to pick up, to listen. My hands shook as I grabbed the phone. "You're lying. This is some sick joke." "I have proof," Patricia continued, her voice stronger now, determined. "Screenshots of the wire transfers from an offshore account, text messages from a burner phone she used. She approached me 2 days before you went into labor. She knew I was drowning in student loans, that my father was dying of cancer and I couldn't afford his treatment. She knew exactly how desperate I was." "Why?" The word came out as a broken whisper. "Why would she kill her own grandchild?" "She said you weren't good enough for their family, said you were after their money, that you'd trapped Desmond with the pregnancy. But that wasn't the real reason. Last month, when I found out I was dying, I hacked into the hospital's old surveillance footage. I heard another conversation she had on the phone that night. She mentioned something about protecting the family business, about how you had a cousin who was a forensic accountant. She was terrified of something you might discover if you became permanent family. My cousin Rachel was indeed a forensic accountant, one of the best in Seattle. We joked at my wedding about her checking out the Reeves family business, making sure I wasn't marrying into anything shady. Francine must have overheard, must have panicked. But there's more, Patricia said, urgency creeping into her voice. Last week, Desmond brought his new wife for her 20-week checkup. Madison Ashford, 22 years old, from the banking family. I saw Francine in the parking lot afterward. She was on her phone, and I heard her say that if this one gives her any trouble, she'll handle it the same way she handled you. My blood turned to ice. Another innocent woman, another baby at risk. I'm sending you everything right now, Patricia continued. Check your email. Bank statements, text messages, even a recording I made of Francine discussing the details with me. I knew someday I'd need evidence, so I recorded our final meeting when she paid me the rest of the money. My phone buzzed with notification after notification. Files downloading, each one another piece of evidence that my baby had been murdered. Why now? I asked. Why tell me now when it's too late to save Oliver? Because it's not too late to save Madison's baby, and because I'm going to the police station in 10 minutes to confess to murder. I wanted you to hear it from me first. I wanted to apologize, though I know that word means nothing. Your son fought so hard, Melinda. The dose should have killed him in minutes, but he lived for 3 hours. It was like he was giving us time to save him, to realize what was happening. I'm so sorry we failed him. I stood in that empty bakery, rain streaming down the windows, holding evidence that changed everything. My baby hadn't died because of my defective body. My marriage hadn't ended because I was unworthy. Everything had been orchestrated by a woman who'd smiled at my baby shower, who'd held my hand in the delivery room, who'd cried at Oliver's funeral. What do you need me to do? I asked Patricia. Come to the police station. Bring your cousin, the accountant. If Francine was willing to kill a baby to hide something, that something must be worth investigating, and warn Madison Ashford. She deserves to know what kind of monster her mother-in-law really is. I locked the bakery and ran through the rain to my car. For 2 years, I'd accepted the story that my body had failed my son. Now I knew the truth. Oliver hadn't died from medical complications. He'd been murdered by his own grandmother. The police station's fluorescent lights made everything feel surreal, like I was walking through someone else's nightmare. Detective Ramon Ibarra spread Patricia's evidence across his desk, his expression growing darker with each document he examined. My cousin Rachel sat beside me, her forensic accounting expertise already connecting dots I couldn't see. "This is enough for a warrant," Detective Ibarra said grimly. "Multiple warrants, actually. Mrs. Reeves, your cousin is right. These offshore accounts Patricia documented show a pattern of embezzlement going back 15 years. Nearly $3 million siphoned from the family's pharmaceutical distribution business." Rachel leaned forward, pointing to specific transactions. Francine was smart, but not smart enough. She used the same offshore accounts for the embezzlement and to pay Patricia. Once we had one thread, the whole web unraveled. She must have known that if Melinda became permanent family, eventually this would come up during estate planning or business transitions. Patricia sat in the corner, handcuffed but relieved, her confession already recorded. She looked smaller than I remembered, cancer having eaten away at her body just as guilt had eaten at her soul. "There's something else," she said suddenly. "The coroner, who did the autopsy, Dr. Michael Stratton, he retired immediately after, moved to Costa Rica. Francine mentioned him during our planning, said he owed her a favor from years back." Detective Ibarra made a note. "We'll track him down. If he falsified autopsy results, he's going to prison too." The arrests happened simultaneously the next evening. I watched from my car as police surrounded Francine's country club during their annual spring gala. She emerged in handcuffs, her designer gown incongruous with the scene, her society friends gasping and filming with their phones. The local news had been tipped off, and cameras captured every moment of her downfall. Walter stood frozen on the steps, his face cycling through confusion, rage, and finally, devastating comprehension. Desmond was beside him with Madison, his pregnant new wife, who looked terrified as she clutched her belly protectively. But the biggest revelation came during Francine's interrogation, which Detective Ibarra let me watch from behind one-way glass. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that," Francine said, her perfect composure finally cracking. "The baby was supposed to die in utero before labor. It would have looked like a stillbirth. Natural, tragic, but natural. Patricia gave him too small a dose initially, trying to be merciful. When he survived to delivery, we had to improvise." "So you murdered your own grandchild to protect your embezzlement?" Detective Ibarra's voice was ice. "You don't understand. I built that company alongside Walter. I deserved that money. I earned it through 30 years of corporate events, charity galas, and pretending his business associates were interesting. But Melinda's cousin would have found it all during routine financial planning. I heard them joking about it at the wedding, about Rachel checking our books. I couldn't let that happen." "And your son's new wife? Were you planning to kill that baby too?" Francine's silence was answer enough. That night, Desmond came to my apartment. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 hours. His perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled. He stood in my doorway, tears streaming down his face. "I helped her destroy you," he said, his voice broken. "She fed me those lies about your genetics, about your family history, and I believed every word because I needed someone to blame. Our son, our perfect Oliver, my own mother murdered him, and I helped her convince everyone it was your fault." "His name was Oliver James Reeves," I said quietly. "I never got to put it on a birth certificate. You never let me say it at the funeral, but that was his name." Desmond collapsed then, sliding down the doorframe, sobbing like I'd sobbed 2 years ago. "Can you ever forgive me?" "No," I said honestly. "You abandoned me when I needed you most. You chose to believe I was defective rather than question why our healthy baby suddenly died. You let your mother's poison destroy us both. I can't forgive that." Madison appeared behind him, 19 weeks pregnant and trembling. "She was going to kill my baby too." I looked at this young woman, barely out of college, married to a man who'd proven he could be manipulated into cruelty. "Yes, Patricia heard her planning it. You should leave him. Take your baby and run. Don't make my mistake of trusting this family." The next morning, newspapers across Oregon ran the story. Pharmaceutical heiress arrested for murdering infant grandchild to hide embezzlement scheme. Francine's mugshot showed a woman finally exposed, her careful mask shattered. Oliver's death had been solved, his murder avenged. But nothing would bring back those 3 precious hours I'd held him, or the life we should have had together. Francine Reeves got life without parole. The trial lasted 3 weeks and revealed depths of evil that shocked even seasoned prosecutors. She'd embezzled $3 million over 15 years, using it to maintain her lifestyle while Walter's business struggled. Dr. Michael Stratton was extradited from Costa Rica and sentenced to 20 years for falsifying autopsy records. He admitted to changing the results to show genetic abnormalities that never existed, all for a payment of $200,000 and a beachfront retirement. Patricia Quinlan died 2 weeks after testifying, her final days spent in hospice care under police guard. She left me a letter that I've read 100 times. "You were the mother I wished I could be. Oliver was lucky to have you, even if just for moments. I know forgiveness is impossible, but please know that your son's memory haunts me more than this cancer ever could. He was perfect, and I destroyed perfection for money. Hell isn't hot enough for what I deserve." Walter divorced Francine immediately and liquidated half his assets to create the Oliver James Reeves Foundation for infant health care and loss prevention. He came to see me once, this powerful man who'd built an empire, crying in my small apartment above the bakery. "I failed you both," he said. "I was so busy building my business that I never saw what my wife was becoming. Oliver was my only grandchild and she murdered him. How does a man live with that?" I didn't have an answer for him. Some guilt is meant to be carried forever. Desmond's story is perhaps the most pathetic. Madison left him the day after Francine's arrest, filing for divorce and a restraining order. She had her baby, a healthy girl she named Hope, and sends me pictures sometimes. Desmond sent me a check for $5 million, his entire inheritance and savings. The note simply said, "For Oliver's memory. I know sorry isn't enough. Nothing will ever be enough." I used that money to transform my pain into purpose. The Oliver James Reeves Center for Childhood Loss and Parental Grief opened 6 months ago in downtown Portland. We offer free counseling, support groups, and legal advocacy for parents who've lost children under suspicious circumstances. That first day, 50 people showed up. 50 parents carrying the same hollow look I'd worn for 2 years. But the real revelation came from Rachel's continued investigation into the Reeves pharmaceutical business. She discovered Francine had been covering up more than embezzlement. She'd been selling expired medications to third world countries, keeping 2 sets of books, and bribing inspectors. Her crimes had likely killed dozens of children in developing nations who received ineffective antibiotics and vaccines. Oliver wasn't her only victim. He was just the only one she murdered directly. The FBI took over the case. The entire Reeves pharmaceutical empire crumbled. Walter lost everything and now lives in a small apartment in Idaho, working as a mechanic at one of his former competitors' dealerships. He sends a check to the foundation every month, always with the same note, "For Oliver and all the others." Today marks 3 years since Oliver's death and 1 year since Francine's conviction. I stood in the center's garden this morning, where a bronze plaque reads, "Oliver James Reeves, loved for a lifetime in 3 precious hours. His brief life exposed evil and saved innocent lives. That is his eternal legacy." Josie found me there at sunset, my sister who'd held me through the darkest period of my life. "The news wants to interview you again," she said softly. "Another baby was saved because a nurse saw our story and reported suspicious behavior from a family member. That makes 7 babies saved since Oliver's story went public. 7 mothers who won't have to endure what I did. 7 families who won't be destroyed by greed disguised as love." "He saved them," I whispered, touching Oliver's plaque one more time. "My 3-hour-old baby saved them all. His death wasn't meaningless. It was the key that unlocked a door hiding decades of evil." The center now helps 200 families a week. We've expanded to 3 locations across Oregon. Every wall displays Oliver's photo, the only one I have, taken minutes after his birth when he was still perfect and alive. Underneath, it says, "Every child matters. Every loss deserves truth. Every parent deserves justice." Sometimes late at night, when I'm locking up the center, I swear I can feel Oliver's presence. Not as a ghost of grief, but as a guardian angel watching over other children, ensuring no grandmother's greed, no family's secrets, no amount of money will ever again be worth more than an innocent life. My baby lived for 3 hours, but his legacy will protect children forever. That's the only thought that lets me sleep at night. If this story touched you, please like this video and share it. Your share might reach someone who needs to hear that their loss matters, that their grief is valid, and that sometimes the smallest lives leave the biggest impact. Comment below if you've experienced loss or injustice that needed to be exposed. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories of truth triumphing over evil, even when that triumph comes at an unbearable cost.